Hello everyone. So in this presentation we will be discussing about the phases of plant growth. So in this basically we will be discussing what is plant growth, what are the three phases of the plant growth and their detail. Plant growth. Plant growth is simply enlargement of a cell or multiplication of cells or simply increases in the size of a particular cell. Basically, plant growth is an irreversible, permanent increase in size of an organ or its parts or individual cells. Plant growth is generally indeterminate and it continues throughout the life due to the presence of meristems. So root and stems grow in length because of the meristems, and there are primary meristems and there are secondary meristems. Primary meristems basically adds length or height mediated by apical meristems at the tip of root and shoot, whereas in secondary growth or secondary meristems it adds the diameter of a stem or root. Vascular cambium adds xylem and phloem, and cork cambium replaces epidermis within the bark. So growth is measurable. There are cell numbers, there are parameters which has been shown, that is cell number, then cell size, length and surface area. So this was about the plant growth. Then what are the three phases of plant growth? The phases of plant growth has been divided into three parts. That is the meristematic phase, elongation phase and the maturation phase. So in this figure it has been depicted, that is the plant. These are the zones. Here A and B is the meristematic phase, then C, D and E is the elongation phase, and F and G is basically the maturation phase. So now we will be discussing each of these phases in detail. So first comes is the meristematic phase. Meristematic phase is also known as formative phase or cell division phase. So in this figure here it is being depicted that the zone of cell formation is here. This is the zone of cell formation where the root apical meristems or shoot apical meristems are present. So this is the first phase of growth. It occurs at the meristems, at the root and the shoot apex. So basically plant meristems are the center of mitotic cell division, and they're composed of a group of undifferentiated self-renewing cells which most plant structures arise, because of which the most plant structures arise. So these cells are responsible for the plant growth. So this is called the zone of cell formation because it leads to the formation of the plant growth. It leads to the formation of the plant growth. Shoot apical meristems and root apical meristems that are present. In case of shoot apical meristems, basically it gives rise to the leaves and flowers, whereas in case of the root apical meristem, it provides the meristematic cells for future root growth. Apical meristems, also known as growing tip, and is an undifferentiated meristematic tissue which is found in buds and growing tips of the roots in plants. So what are the characteristics of this? They have large nucleus, they have thin primary cell wall, and they are rich in cytoplasm. Moreover, they have small vacuoles, or the vacuoles are absent from this phase completely. So now the phase of cell division or formative phase. The meristematic cells undergo mitosis to produce new daughter cells. They undergo the process of mitosis and they produce new daughter cells. These daughter cells basically are thin-walled and prominent nucleus and dense cytoplasm. They have a large nucleus. In the last slide, I have already shown that they have a large nucleus. They are thin-walled and moreover they have a dense cytoplasm. Vacuoles, I have already told that they are absent in newly formed cells. Vacuoles are generally low in number or they are completely absent in the newly formed cells. The addition of new cells results in slight increase in the organ. So the addition of these new cells may slightly increase in the size of the organ. So basically this is the formative phase. So when the plant grows, it is basically it will lead to the increase in the size of the organ. Cell division is completely two-party, namely karyogenesis and cytokinesis. So these are the two parties which are named as karyogenesis and cytogenesis, kinesis. Then the elongation phase. The next phase just after the zone of cell formation is the zone of cell elongation. This part is called the zone of cell elongation. Here you can see that this is a small plant, and when here it is compared, then there is a slightly increase in the length of the plant. So this is because of the zone of cell elongation. So it occurs in cell proximal, just next away from the tip to the meristematic zone. So just after the meristematic zone is the zone of cell elongation. So now what are the characteristics of this zone of cell elongation? So the characteristics of cells are there is a cell enlargement. Because of the cell enlargement, there is increase in length of the plant. New cell wall deposition, there is a new cell wall deposition, and there is increased vacuolation. Increased vacuolation means the plants have more number of vacuoles and they have large vacuoles, which leads to the increase in the growth of the plant and growth or length of the plant. Then comes the maturation phase. So just after the elongation phase comes the maturation phase. For example, from this part to this part, this was the elongation zone, this was the formative zone, and just after this there comes the maturation phase. It occurs in cells further away from the apex, more proximal to the phase of elongation. So just after the elongation phase comes the maturation phase. So what are the characteristics of these cells in this region? So they have maximum cell wall thickening. The cells mature to the permanent size because it leads to the flowering. There's a production of leaves after the maturation phase, in the maturation phase, and maximum cell wall thickening takes place. So this was all about the three phases, that is the meristematic phase, the elongation phase, and the maturation phase. These are all the phases, and because of these phases and as I have told, these were the characteristics of the cell in all these three phases. So these were the references from where I have taken the figures and the content. Thank you.